your application didn't crash, pipeline didn't fail, but the disk got full. This is one of the major problems you are going to see in real world projects. And today we are going to detect this particular problem and handle this using a shell script. That is the goal of this video. By the end of this video, you will come to know how to detect disk usage problems using a shell script, and also, if required, you can clean that regularly using this particular script. If you are new to my channel, like this video, comment shell scripting so that I can send the full repository for you to do hands-on practice. Now, let's directly jump into our Visual Studio Code. If you remember, in the last episodes, we created multiple scripts. For example, why shell scripting matters has few scripts, followed by we have multi-server check script, and today we are going to write a script which will check for the disk usage and also clean up the log files. All right. Now, I would like to give it a name. For example, disk check.sh, followed by let's try to start writing the script. For example, I would like to connect to a remote server as we did in our last episode. I'm not doing it on my own machine, so I'm going to connect to one of our virtual machine which is sitting on DigitalOcean. So I'm going to copy that IP address real quick and put it in this particular script and save this file. Followed by, let's try to add some threshold value. So in general, I will write it as 90. So it completely depends on individual project requirements. So this can change a lot, depends on the situation and how your team decides about this particular value. There are so many different things that we have to consider before defining a particular threshold. All right. For our simplicity and use case, I'm putting it as 90 here. I'm going to save this, followed by I will say usage equal to, we are going to connect to that particular server, same like we did in our previous episode. I'm using SSH DevOps user is, let's say I created that particular user in the last series, last episode, if you remember. So I'm using the same stuff here, followed by I'm going to run df on the root folder. Then we are passing this output and using awk tool here so that we can print it as number, and I am using print here, followed by $5 and close this. That's it. I'm going to close the whole bracket. So here we are trying to connect to the remote server from our host machine and trying to print the usage of our root location folder. Then next step would be echo. I'm going to say disk usage on server, followed by if usage is greater than threshold, then we will say echo warning, disk usage on server is above this particular threshold, else echo disk usage on servers is within acceptable limits. Then we are going to close the loop. That's it. This is very simple script. I'm not making it complicated. Now let's try to modify this. Chmod disk check.sh, and then let's try to run that real quick. If you see, I get an error saying 23% integer expression expected. Yes, this is expected. I know about this problem. Disk usage on this particular server is 23%. Now I'm going to connect to the remote server real quick and let's try to fill up some disk space. For that, I'm using fallocate command followed by I'm saying 6 gigabytes big file log. Press enter. This will increase our disk space. Let me come back here and try to run the disk check.sh once again. If you see right now disk usage is 92%. We should not see this error. Yeah, this is acceptable. Disk usage is within acceptable limits. Now if you look at the output, it is not clear because if you see we have threshold value as number and we get the output as 92% and it is trying to calculate here usage is greater than threshold, which doesn't work out. It is trying to calculate per number with the percentile. So we need to add another line within our script. Now we are going to add SED to remove the percentile and then we are going to add it back so that the output is very clear and also the comparison works with the threshold which we provided. All right, now let's try to add bin bash as well to the script. Let me scroll up and let me paste this here real quick. Let's try to run the script now and see the output. So if you look at the output now, disk usage 92%, which is our remote server, which is sitting on DigitalOcean. Warning, disk usage is above 90%. So whatever we wrote in our script, the same output we are getting. We are trying to connect to the server, gave threshold as 90, and then we did SSH and we are running df command to check the usage and trying to print this particular usage. After printing, we are using if condition here to check the usage. If it is greater than threshold, then we are trying to print this, else disk usage on server is within acceptable limits. So this is how you try to write a very simple script and try to check the disk usage. If you want to check it for multiple servers, you just add another server. You can add 3, 4, 5, 10. There is no limit. So this is kind of, let's say, very useful in real world production environments. And also if you don't have very big tools in place, for example Ansible, there are some configuration management tools and there are some other processes as well. These scripts are really useful if you don't want to if you don't want complex stuff. All right, now the next part. So cleaning up, how should we clean this? So for that I'm going to write another script, cleanup.sh. all right, in cleanup.sh once again we are going to start with bin bash and then I'm going to select this server. Let me copy it from the previous script. I'm going to copy this server and paste it here. This is the server. Again, once again, we are using the same server. Echo check large log files on server. Okay, the file which we created, we are going to check for that particular file. So I'm saying check large log file on server, followed by I would like to run the command. For example, SSH DevOps, it's the same process. Here I'm using find command. I'm going to replace this with our own command, find slash. I would like to check in the entire file system, not only in var log. So That's the reason I'm using this. F is only for files, and the size would be plus 200 MB. This is enough. Um, in general, I mean, if it is, let's say, in GBs, you can use that as well, not an issue. But yeah, for this, I'm using 200 MB. So whichever is more than that, we have to see that, followed by slash dev slash null. That's it. Very, very simple. Find to search the entire file system. Slash is, let's say, entire root folder means file system we are trying to search here. Type is, let's say, file. Size we are pointing to greater than null. We are trying to use this to ignore permission errors. I mean, I don't want to print everything. Let's say if we have more permission errors, our terminal would be not clear to read stuff. So that's the reason we are trying to add this. And then finally, I will say echo checking is done and close this. Okay. Once this is done, let me clear the screen and try to modify the permissions of the script, followed by let's try to run this dot slash cleanup dot sh. Now if you see, it is trying to check the whole file system, checking large log files, and if you see home DevOps big file dot log, if you remember, we created this particular file and it tried to check that exactly. Now we know the file, right? So once you know the file, what you can do, you can directly delete it using this particular script, or maybe manually you can delete it. First of all, before deleting, especially in production environments, we have to be very, very careful. If something is running, for example, application is running, application.log, if you try to delete that, that will not work out, because there are some other commands as well that you can use. But yeah, for this I can delete, because this is it's a normal file which we created. So I know the location of this particular file, home DevOps big file.log. Now instead of scanning the whole root partition, I am going to copy this location and let's try to filter by that particular location. All right, I'm going to say cleanup.sh once again. So if you see, checking is done and it found this particular log file. So if this is the case, then I'm going to move here to this particular line and we can run delete. I'm going to remove this first and let's try to run the delete. Then we'll print this. All right. We are trying to narrow down the problem within the script. I mean, in real production environments, it will be completely different. I'm trying to teach you how things work and how to drill down to the exact particular problem and try to clean up stuff. We have log rotate and some other different tools that we can use to configure and clean up stuff. But yeah, this is, let's say, one of the scenario I'm trying to explain easily so that it will be easy for you to understand shell scripting. Now let's try to run the script once again. Press enter. If you see, checking is done, and also I think I should have wrote it as large log files are deleted if they exist. So let me try to run that. I think it already deleted that. Yes, this is gone now. We do not have any kind of log file. If you see, checking is done and large log files are deleted if they exist. All right, this is how you try to check the disk usage and also clear the log files. This is one of the scenarios which I'm trying to show. If you want, you can verify by connecting it to the server once again, and there is nothing. So if you check home DevOps location, I do not see anything, any log file, because we created the log file in the beginning, but I do not see anything now. So this is how you try to check the disk usage and also clean up the scripts. But remember, this is very dangerous command. Delete, rm-rf, all these are very dangerous commands. You have to be very careful in real production environments. If you like this video, comment shell scripting and also try to do hands-on practice. I'm going to share this particular repository with all of you. Please like this video, and also in the next episode we are going to monitor services and automatically fix them when something goes down. That's it for today. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.